Okay, good evening, everybody. I am Brad Morris, Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors, and I am filling in tonight for Bob Brooks, who is out of state for a family function. So I would like to call the January 21st, 2016 meeting of the Bella Vista Property Owners Association Board of Directors to order as of 6:30 this evening. And I would like us to all rise, and I will lead us in the National Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you would please remain standing, Mr. Harold Ackridge of the Bella Vista Church of Christ will provide our invocation tonight.
Will you pray with me? Our Almighty God, we're thankful for the love that you have placed in our hearts for you and our fellow man. We're thankful for the community that we live in, and we pray this evening that you will be with each board director. Help them to have the experience and courage and wisdom to make decisions that affect all residents here in Bella Vista. We offer this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eckridge. Appreciate that. Like myself, Harold was filling in for his senior pastor, so we appreciate his help this evening. And just a couple of housekeeping matters here so that all the members understand who's here and who's not. As I mentioned, Bob Brooks, our chairman, is out of state attending to a family matter. Also, Patrick Lowry, another director, is out of state with a family matter. And Director Joshua Hart has just arrived. Excellent. So we have 6 of us, and I would note that I have proxies for both Patrick Lowry and Bob Brooks. So this evening on matters that come to a vote, I will actually be raising all 3 of my hands, perhaps for and against on different measures, but I will be voting 3 times this evening. We're now to item 4 of the agenda, which is additions or deletions to the agenda. And I'd just like to make two changes to the agenda, or at least propose that to the rest of the directors. The first one that I would make is to table a second reading of Section 306 on our bylaws, or our Board of Director policy, given the fact that we have 2 directors absent, and honestly, I was expecting that we would have 3 directors absent. I just felt it best that we table that motion for 1 more month until all the directors could be present and share in the discussion and vote on that topic for themselves. So this evening, if you're looking at your agenda under old business, it's item 11D, concerns the city employee access to POA amenities. That item will be tabled tonight. And then one other addition that I'd like to make to the agenda is due to the flood, we have a new cost estimate on some repairs that we had originally budgeted and approved. The Scottsdale Golf Course, we have a new number that is going to require a little bit of additional funding, and I really don't want to wait for another month to do that because that would, it's just not good timing. We need to get on that. So 2 new additions. Unless I have any concerns from the directors, that'll be an additional item under new business. Okay, thank you. I would also, at this point, on item 6 of the agenda, item 5, approval of the minutes of December 17th, the regular board meeting. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion? I have discussion. And I've got a couple of suggestions, or at least one required change that I would like to make. Under Section 8 of the minutes, under open forum, the initial draft of the minutes indicate that we responded to Steve McKee's comments that the proposed policy 306 did convey voting rights to the city employees who elected to purchase a photo ID card. That's the original draft of the minutes. That is incorrect because policy 306 never conveyed voting rights to the city employees. That simply was a typographical error that I think needs to be corrected. And then a minor change, a wording change I would recommend is section 10, when we talked about our appointment of Dwayne Mitchell as treasurer. I am requesting that we change the word enact or enactment to appoint or appointment, because that's what we did. We appointed Dwayne Mitchell as a treasurer, an officer of the corporation. So those two changes were a couple I would like to suggest. Could I get a motion for that change?
I'll move that we amend the minutes of last month's meeting to include the changes that Mr. Morris just spoke of.
And a second? Okay, Ruth has got a second on that. All in favor, signified by saying aye. Aye. The minutes are approved unanimously with the two changes noted. Okay, moving now to item 6 of the agenda. Tonight is our first opportunity to welcome Mr. Tom Judson as our new Chief Operating Officer of the POA. And so let me welcome Tom and say, glad to have you, sir. Tom has officially been on the payroll here for 10 days, and he's working hard for us already, and I'm looking forward to what he will be doing for us in the weeks and years to come. Now I would like to turn the table over to Dwayne Mitchell, who will give us a brief financial report on the calendar 2015 financial statements.
Testing one. There's 3 attachments tonight, and these are all preliminary numbers. We're just closing the books tonight, in fact, because for year end, we keep it open longer for the adjusting entries and for all the numbers to get in. But the first page, it says Bill of Vista POA income statement preliminary, and this is through December 25th, or December 2015. Again, these are preliminary numbers. Variance to budgets, looking at income, we were down in income about $485,000. Cost of sales was about $13,000 down, for a gross profit down on this section of the POA. This is just the POA, $471. But expenses, we had a lot of expense savings. Expenses were saved of $881,000 for a net income of positive $536, better than budget. Looking down in simple cash flow, we're adding back book value of assets sold or retired of $107,000. Subtract capital projects, add reserves, coming into a positive cash flow of $886,000. And then taking away capital projects that weren't completed but had been approved, they will have reserves because they just were not completed. They were in operations the prior year, but this year they'll have reserves for 2016. That's $219,000. Taking away expense projects for carryovers. I know one that comes to mind right now is the pickleball court for $30,000, renovation of it, and other things. That totals, $78,000. And then marketing expense, there was $162,000 added to the budget in 2015, and not all that was spent, so that will get carried forward also of $56,000. So that's a positive cash flow adjusted of $532,000 at the end of the year, preliminary, but it'll be close to that. The second one is the water utility, looking at the same verbiage, the income, the expenses, you can see those numbers. Income was down $124,000. Expenses were better than budget, $848,000. Income, cost of operation was $638,000 positive. Looking down in simple cash flow, ended up with $594,000 positive. Taking away one capital project, that may be carried over is 55,000 with no previous reserves. Gives them a positive 539,000 at the end of the year. And then the last one is just the combined with the elimination since the water POA. You can see the overall is the 532, 586.
Do the directors have any questions for Dwayne on these preliminary calendar 15 financial statements? Thank you very much, Dwayne. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to respond to previous open forum comments. And according to the minutes that we just approved, there were really only two items last month at the open forum. There was a brief discussion in regard to the policy 3.06 that the board responded to that evening. And then Chairman Brooks also read a letter from the fly tires thanking the POA for the work that we've been doing on the lakes, et cetera, and the staff that had been supporting them. And really it was something to go along with a check to the POA for almost $10,000 that the fly tires had submitted. So I believe that the open forum comments from last month have been resolved or addressed. And so the next item is open forum this evening. And if anybody from the membership would like to address the board, our requests are two, that you give us your name and also your address.
My name is Dick Hartman. I live at 3 Milford Lane. I have two concerns. The first one is regarding the golf cart, the private cart ownership. There seems to be some question amongst the people of Bella Vista, an uncertainty really. People don't know if a couple both have an annual golf cart on their ID card, and one of the party is playing at a different course. Is the other party liable for a rental at a different course? There's a lot of people that are very confused about that. And I sent an email to Andy Marr for clarification, and he really wasn't sure about it either. We had a discussion yesterday at Papa Mike's with one of the people from the golf shop there, and they really don't know what's going on. So we need to get some clarification out there as to what is the obligation of the party of a two ownership of a private cart. Do they have to pay an additional cart fee if they're playing with, other than their own private cart?
Everybody will be given a card that says either I have a private cart registered, and the spouse will also have one that says private cart registered if they choose to do that. When they present it at the golf shop, if they don't have the cart with them, they will be issued a cart, a lease cart.
So it doesn't matter if they're a third person in a group, they can use a lease cart at no cost.
Right, you both
Is that
pay
correct?
per seat, yes.
Okay,
Both
we
are
need to
per seat.
publish that. There are people who are not playing golf because they think they're going to have to pay for a rental of a cart.
I think it's a
Okay.
point well taken, and we appreciate the need to clarify that, and we will work with Tom and his staff to get the word out, and hopefully that'll be a very consistent, clear message to all the golfers, because that should be clear.
Okay, now I'm reading here that you're going to allow non-property owner members of city employees to purchase a picture ID card and have member fee amenity access. Is that correct?
That's a pretty good summary of the proposed change to policy 3.06.
Okay, if you do that, and I understand, and I'm in favor of doing that because that's going to create more amenity usage and more revenue. Now, using this same avenue that you're allowing these people to have access, could we not also allow renters?
And I'm not the lawyer, Dick, and and sometimes I'm glad I'm not the lawyer, but it is my understanding, and I can't quote you the legal case law, but we have a lawsuit that was filed several years ago and was ruled on by an Arkansas judge that said the declarations that formed this organization and this club prohibit a renter from being granted membership privileges. It simply is not legal. Now, this board is also in the process of drafting a proposed change to those declarations that would enable a renter to have membership privileges if the owner assigned them, okay? But
Right.
that is a proposed change to a declaration that if the membership approved will take, I'm sorry again, but it will take 3 years to take effect because that is part of our existing declaration.
Okay, now what is the avenue that you're using to allow city employees who are not property owners to have access?
Because the bylaws permit the board to identify how many photo IDs are available to a owner, and the city owns 9 lots. At least 9, maybe more.
Okay, so as a company,
As the city,
as a city, so they're an organization, correct? That owns lots, that gives them that privilege to allow X number of members or ID cards?
they would be given the opportunity to purchase those photo ID cards, that's correct.
So couldn't the, let's say the landlord create landlords association throughout Bella Vista and create a company scenario whereby they could be allowed to allow their renters to have that access?
I'm not the lawyer, and so I'm not going to suggest how, those particular appropriate facts and circumstances could be created. Again, this was a court case of over a decade ago that simply said your declarations do not permit it.
Well,
And we're doing what
there's always a way around almost everything, and if you're allowing the city employees who are not lot owners or property owners to have access, there's, because the city is a, quote, corporation or company, they have that right. So couldn't everybody that owns a rental property form a company and do the same thing?
I won't say that it couldn't be done, but I don't know that every individual property owner who happens to rent his property is going to turn it into a corporation and come for a special policy.
Yeah, well-
I do believe the board is interested in providing membership privileges to renters, and that's why we're proposing the change to the declaration.
Okay, yeah, if we can get that done, but it takes 3 years. So.
I know.
I mean,
That's
we're all interested in keeping Bella Vista viable, so we want more usage of our amenities and more revenue generated by that usage, so we should definitely explore that. Okay? Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Are there any others?
Evening.
Good evening, Steve.
Steve McKee, 3 Tyree Place. There's an organization here already, Vacation Rentals. Do they somehow get around this situation he was talking about, or?
The proposed policy covers the city of
I mean, the
this-
renter,
No, they do not.
and then can't they just simply be assigned a guest pass?
You can always have, virtually anybody in America can be assigned a guest pass. But a guest pass is not a membership photo ID.
But they don't own a lot either, so, I mean, what they're trying to do is get access to the amenities and as guests, and then they would be permitted to use the amenities.
Yeah, all
But
guests,
this-
if you come and rent a property through vacation rental, that
Or
landlord,
directly from a landlord.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
I guess I'm not sure what the issue is then, or why this is even an issue. Just tell them to issue a guest pass. No, okay, well, good point. As a landlord who owns a property, why not just let them issue a guest pass to their tenants, and I don't see what the issue is.
the landlord cannot issue a guest pass. The POA can and does issue guest passes to people who are short-term renters. We do it constantly. There's hundreds of them outstanding at any one point in time.
So what's the issue there then?
What-
What have I missed?
I'm not
Why
sure
are
what
we,
your
why are we
question is.
talking about trying to change policy for 3 years and declarations and all of that if it's already being done?
The issue is a member photo ID card versus a guest pass. And I'm not sure if you've reviewed the fee schedule lately, but there is a significant difference to use the amenity if you're a guest versus a member with a photo ID.
That's just sort of the way it is. But I guess I just missed the issue if they can get access anyway. But the other thing I wanted to mention was about that policy 306. What declaration or bylaw are you using to try to get this through?
Well, it's simply a board policy that we're changing that gives us that authority. These are board policies. The board can approve policies and change policies according to the board policies. I mean, there's a process in there for changing a board policy, and that's what we're doing. We're proposing to do.
Right, so in the renter issue, there's a declaration that governs the rules. In other words, the board just can't propose something or change it willy-nilly. They have to submit themselves to the rules and the declarations and the policies, et cetera. Is that
Well,
a fair statement?
I don't know if we have time this evening to go through the entire governance structure of the POA, but the declarations are the highest and most powerful document, and they govern everything else. If the declarations are silent on a topic, the articles of incorporation are applied. If the articles of incorporation are silent, then the bylaws are addressed. If the bylaws are silent on a topic, then board policies are addressed.
Right. So from the top all the way to the bottom, all the verbiage says you have to be a member, or you may be a guest to use our amenities. There's nothing in there whatsoever about allowing non-property owners access to photo IDs. But since you're trying to make this change, did you folks talk to a lawyer?
This policy has
Did-
been considered since we
What was
had
the
corporate
lawyer's,
counsel.
I'm sorry. What was the lawyer's name?
Doug McCash.
He's no longer employed here though, right?
Right, but this policy has been in the works for months and months while Doug was still on the payroll.
Do you have a packet of information that he's put together that says, yes, you can rely on this to get it done? Or was it sort of, let's have coffee and talk about changes we want to make?
I don't have a packet of information of Doug's emails with me tonight, Steve.
Did we pay him?
Well, yeah, he was an employee, so yeah, we paid him. We pay our employees.
And when did he quit?
I don't have his termination date at the top of my tongue here, Steve. I'm not quite sure what that has to do with anything.
Well, I'm just wondering if you actually sought counsel as this whole process has been going along.
Yes, we did.
Okay, have you talked to him recently then?
Well, he's not an employee. So,
Well, that was my point.
well, he was an employee when we consulted with him, Steve,
Okay,
when this whole thing was begun to be drafted.
so he sort of looked at it, said okay, and hasn't been consulted since. Have you talked with other attorneys about it?
We had the opinion of our in-house legal counsel that had been with us for quite some time, who was very familiar with our governing documents. He saw no trouble with it. Why would we consult with him later on?
Well, because I've asked that question a couple of times to various board members, and they don't seem to be able to cite anything aside from Article 8, Section 3, Paragraph F. And it says that the board has the right to limit the number of members that have access to our amenities by reason of ownership. And I believe that was used to permit the extended family situation as non-principal members, but then now it's being used to extend it to corporations where there is no tie whatsoever to ownership. So again, I'm wondering what you folks are using. I mean, I'll say that I'm glad you've tabled this, but what I would propose is that you table it permanently.
Okay, thank you for the opinion. We appreciate you coming and expressing your opinion tonight. Is there anybody else?
Mr. Jordan, I want to welcome you to Bella Vista.
I'll just
What
correct
I've
that.
heard and read, I'm excited. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was a little upset about what I read in the paper the other day and listening to the discussion. It seems that there's about 5 or 6 different levels of how we govern the POA. And if you can't be covered under one, we'll find another way. And I think the issue was that I used to come to the POA meetings, and I got so frustrated because they always found a way to do what they wanted to do, but not what the people that are paying for the POA wanted to do. And the issue was the article in the paper, we're going to hide the salary of the new POA manager because it's none of your business how we spend your money. That's the way the message came across. And you can find a level of government that you don't have to give out that information. And I think, why would you want to hide it? And I think you're just left the door open again for people to say you can't trust the POA. And I wish you'd give that some consideration.
Thank you very much.
I'm Nancy Cox. I live at 5 Drayton Circle. And I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, what incentive do I have to continue paying my POA assessments if you're going to give photo IDs to everybody that comes, well, to all the city employees? My second question is, what happens if I stop paying those assessments?
The first thing I want to clarify is that the proposed policy does not give photo IDs to anyone. And that's a word that I've heard repeatedly and seen in print repeatedly. The fact is we are proposing to sell the photo IDs to city employees who don't already own lots for the same price that other people pay, which is $35. What incentive is there for you to continue to pay your assessments? I don't want to be difficult or mean or cruel, but if you don't, you could potentially, and again, this is the absolute ultimate last ditch authority of the POA. I mean, you can lose your property if you don't pay your assessments. That's the rule that you bought your property under. So, I mean,
And
there's,
again, my position is I bought my property with the belief that my amenities were exclusive to the POA property owners. And now you want to sell membership, or ID cards, excuse me, to 145 city employees who can bring spouses, children, guests, to use our facilities anytime they want to.
what we're proposing is the sale of a member photo ID so that they can pay to use those amenities at photo ID rates. Are there any other open forum comments for the board this evening? Okay. The next item on the agenda is our Joint Advisory Committee reports with the Lakes Committee. Who is presenting that report this evening?
John Knoll was coming. I don't see him. Guess it's me.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Give me half a second to remember what happened. The Lakes Committee met yesterday, so obviously it's well past my memory quotient. The Lakes Committee welcomed, I believe, 6 new members and possibly 7 new members. The Lake Committee was one of the committees that took advantage of the opportunity to expand their membership by adding a couple of new members. Lake Committee members do a lot of things that help the Lake Department, measuring lakes and work projects and details and inspections of POA and property, and they were very pleased by the fact that they got these extra members. Lake Committee was also introduced to our new fish biologist, Eccles. What's his first? Rick, thank you. Rick Eccles. Very nice young man, has impeccable qualifications, and gave a nice presentation about what biologists do and a little overview of our lakes. Worked on work assignments for each of the members of the Lake Committee, do inspections at each lake to complement the staff and help the staff out, to kind of multiply the staff hours, which is very pleasing. Quite a bit of housekeeping about how they're going to arrange things. They are considering the option. They were presented the opportunity to move to the conference room for their meetings. They are going to consider that at their next meeting. They wanted to get their feet a little more on the ground before they made that decision one way or the other. And I believe that's the high points of what happened.
Thank you, John. Any other? Go ahead, Bruce.
Can I ask a question? John doesn't know it, maybe somebody else will. I had a member ask me about stocking the lakes with fish, and I know those numbers are out there somewhere. What I saw online was just through 2013. So we've got 2014 and 2015. I think it's been in the paper, but I missed it. Could we call Mr. Eccles?
He would have to answer.
Or who would have the answer to that?
Yes. As we all know, Daryl Bowman was our Lakes Director, and Rick has taken his place. And Daryl was the one who worked with the Arkansas Game and Fish with the stocking program here in Bella Vista. So I can't say that Rick couldn't look into the information in the computer that Daryl has and find that information and be able to present that. But I would be glad to speak with Mr. Eccles and see if we could find that information.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
What kind of fish was he asking about?
You're talking about all stocking, whether that be
He's talking,
crappie,
his-
bass, bluegill, trout, maybe?
his comment was, the last few times he's been fishing, he hadn't gotten a bite. Now,
Well, that
maybe
says
because he's a poor fisherman, but I actually know this fella. He's pretty smart about that stuff. So he's just curious.
Sure,
as
understand.
to the stockings.
I'll check into that.
Appreciate it.
Go ahead, John, you have another lakes item?
Yeah, just you can pass this to your neighbor. One of the conversations at the meeting was the concern that we have too many fish in many of our lakes, and that we're working on encouraging people to harvest what are considered juvenile bass. That's a bass, I think it's less than 13 and more than 9, but don't quote me on that number, but fisherman knows that number, because we have so many, we need to get rid of them so our other bass can get bigger. So I think your neighbor might need to just be embarrassed.
Okay, moving on, the Recreation Committee, Jane Barfield was, well, I won't make any comment.
But I will, and I'm nowhere near as nice. But Jane was polite enough to give me notes.
Okay, good.
And her first thing in her notes is she would like to welcome Mr. Judson to the community. The Recreation Committee met on the 11th. We had a full house, including the new general manager. Bob Brooks presented a very enlightened organizational chart and encouraged the new members to get things going for 2016, where he also produced a list of recommendations for what they needed to accomplish in 2016. They do amenity reports on all the amenities. Each of the Recreation Committee members go out and watch one of the different facilities that we have. And only listed would be the things that they thought would need some action. Branchwood, they've reached their capacity at Silver Sneakers and Silver and Fit cardio classes, and they'd like us somewhere to come up with a new additional multi-purpose room for them. There was a report on the second safety, or they call it secondary additions to the walls on the top of the rifle range. Two guests, Mike Caseta and Bob Davis, came to talk about ping pong tables. They have a group of ping pong players sometime Wednesday that has expanded from 2 to about 15, and they're interested in having the POA and the Recreation Department buy another ping pong table. Clem Morgan gave a report on the Met Field project, which is the pickleball courts, and reported that out for bid, that his contract is out for bid on removing the dilapidated tennis courts that are in need of repair and building 2 additional pickleball courts. And that would be the $30,000 that Mr. Mitchell talked about in the budget that went carried over from one year to the next. As a note to everybody else, we are still going to keep the indoor pickleball court at Met Field, and there were other racquetball courts will remain. The Recreation Committee voted to accept the board's offer to use the boardroom for their future meetings. Those meetings will be at 4 o'clock, the second Tuesday of each month, in this location right here, starting in February. And they had some housekeeping. They voted to approve their minutes, and they're working on a procedure to get their minutes out a little quicker, that they're going to consider voting on them by email so that they will be available to the membership at a quicker date. And thank you, Jane, for notes. I appreciate them greatly.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Jane, again. Jake, tell us about golf in Bella Vista. Jake Grasmick, Chairman of the Golf Joint Advisory Committee.
And I don't know if that's an honor or if I just couldn't
Take it any way you like.
for the second year and going on to my second term. First of all, I just want to follow up on the presentation I gave the last time about our project we had over at Metfield Clubhouse, and just a review that the Metfield neighbors had raised $2,500 to put back into the clubhouse around the Metfield area. And I made a proposal last time, and we got on the project, and I have some photos. Give it a second, I'll pass around. Just like to thank the Metville neighbors for organizing this tournament, and $2,500 went quite a little ways towards this project. And there's some you can pass over to these other people. The first two pictures are the before pictures, the way the area looked. And this had been an area that has deteriorated over the years, and we've had golf carts parking there year after year. And so you could see how the root system of the trees were exposed. The next two pictures show that we put a curbing around the whole area and used landscaping rocks in between the curbing to prevent the carts from driving up. And we did get some of the boulders placed on there. And thanks to Keith and his crew, we did in-house labor. We paid, the funds paid for the materials. And we finished 2 days prior to, guess what? The rains came. So as a result, we have not quite finished that project as we would like to. But we did have enough money left over to buy the Play Forward plaques that go on Dogwood. And we have now purchased or have the funds available to purchase all the Play Forward plaques on all the courses. The Lads and Lassies of Scottsdale has donated money towards that. The Friends of the Highlands are already starting to put theirs in, thanks to Keith and his organization on the Kingswood and Burksdale, and we are going to seek the funds to do Country Club somewhere down there. So I hope that do you have any questions on that project? The next thing I would like to cover is the last 2 months you've talked about reorganization of the reorganization of the joint advisory committees, and I feel it's important to discuss this because of some of the things that are coming up. Just pay attention to the top items, please. As you know, Mr. Brooks had requested that we add 5 members to our committee, from 7 to 12. And the purpose of the reorganization was to focus on certain areas in our clubs, and felt like the 7 members were spread too thin. And the unfortunate thing was that the day before our meeting, we only had 3 people step up. We had 10 people volunteer at that time. So Mr. Brooks and I sat in this room and split up the committees to these 3 different groups, which are the Junior and Golf Committee, the Marketing, and the Greens and Course. Well, the next day, we were able to find 3 volunteers. As you see, I've written in the volunteer names, so we filled out those committees. And you'll see 1 name missing, and that's my name. And the only reason that I left my name off this, as I have planned on attending all of these committee members and try to bind and connect all of these committees together instead of trying to be all out like a loose cannon somewhere, so that we are focused. I am focusing on the Junior Golf and Tournament Committee, and this is right up my alley, I feel like. And all of these committees have met. All of them have some program in. Let's say they're starting to get things organized, and by next meeting, we hope to have some programs. In the Junior Golf and Tournaments, we've already set up to have, as you see, Daryl's name down there, set up as instructions, and we're going to have some definite dates set for tournaments and for lessons being given to our young people, and hope to encourage and increase this. And with our markers, our Play Forward markers and so on that we're placing out on the courses, this should enable these young people to be able to play our courses. And the Greens and Course committees, they're off and running, and we've got some projects already completed. The unfortunate thing about having these members and only organizing the day before our first meeting, we missed a couple opportunities at our first meeting. One, the orientation to our new members. Second was we have two subcommittees. Marketing in this boardroom, marketing in the golf committee, and the director of marketing. It is my opinion that we probably should have, we got the cart ahead of the horse a little bit. We should have been focusing on some guidelines to those different committees. And we, as a result, I think some members can probably shake their heads, they've already had some feedback. Thanks to Ron, we are going to have a meeting, in 2 weeks, Ron, with all of these committees so that we can set our roads and set our guidelines so that we are not focusing on the same thing. So we aren't having this group running here, this group running here, and we're crisscrossing. So the reorganization will work, and they are focused, and we are going down the road and getting some things done. Questions?
Just want to thank you for stepping up and taking the chair.
Well, like I said, don't talk to my wife.
So I owe you your thing, or what?
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. Okay, item 11 on the agenda is old business, and the first two items, I'm guessing that Mike Taggart is going to tell us an update on the Metfield Clubhouse renovation, as well as the Branchwood Trail construction.
Okay, I want to give you an update on those two projects, as Brad has stated. The member service, pro shop, and snack bar at Metfield. That project is in its final stages. A couple things we've done. Substantial completion of the pro shop was the 20th, which was yesterday. We've went through that process. We went through the punch list or walkthrough also yesterday. The final inspection is scheduled for the 25th, which is Monday. Including in that is our State Health Department inspections. And we'll also have a follow-up on the 26th with the contractor, the architect, and the staff of the POA to run through that facility that day. Once that's done, that opens the door for us to move in. We have my staff to install some furniture systems at the membership services side. We also have to bring back in some of the store fixtures and shelving and food service items in the pro shop area, and that's all scheduled for around the 28th, 29th. Membership service and pro shop after that, about at that same time, we're planning on start moving them in around the 29th through February 1st. Complete the remaining work in vacating the membership service office where they are now into the new part. That's scheduled for around February 12th. And once that's done, then we can finish doing the tear down of the existing membership services offices and get the fitness center ready to move into that space as it was intended. So that's the Metfield project. Yes. My understanding is Genevieve, and they've been working on that. And that was the liquor license, if anyone didn't hear that. Beer? Okay, beer, not liquor. Beer only. Okay. Beer only then. Okay, the Branchwood Trail. Considering the weather as of late, the project continues to move forward. We get updates every day on that project. The contract itself, project was for 120 days, or approximately 6 months. The notice to proceed was given to the contractor on November 30th. Without any major delays, that estimated completion date for that, phase one of that project, would be around May. And then after that's all done, been working with Keith and his group. My guys filled in the pond. Most of you may have seen that. We will be doing some hydro seeding there and working with Keith and his group. And we'll be seeding that area sometime around mid-May. Is about the earliest we could start doing that for the kind of grass we're putting in there. And we should start seeing some grass in somewhere around June on that project. Again, that's phase one of that project. And if one doesn't know, that's going to be an 8-foot wide path in the old Branchwood Golf Course, and that's for walking and bike trail. Anybody have any questions on that, board members? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Item C on old business is a flood repair update, and that predominantly involves our golf courses, which means it's Keith's turn on the table here.
It's the old adage, if you don't like the weather, come back a day later. We've had rain and now we have snow, so there you go. I'm going to give you a real broad, quick overview of where we stand, and then if you have any specific questions, I'll answer those. All the golf courses are open, would be open if the weather allowed right now, with the exception of the Burksdale course. Burksdale, we said from the beginning, would probably not open till the 1st of February, and that'll be when it will open, 1st of February. More damage there to bridges, more debris to pick up. We're in the process right now of getting a state permit so that we can get closer to the creeks to finish picking up all the gravel and silt. You're not allowed to get in or close to the creek without having a permit from the state. Since this area was considered a disaster area, we were able to get the permit a little quicker, and we don't believe we're going to have to pay for the permit. So once we get the permits here, we'll start working on hauling off all these big piles of gravel. If you haven't been to Scottsdale, the lower part of the golf course, the front nine, is normally links and flat. Well, we've got some big hills with rock there that we have to haul off. Also, from a permitting standpoint, the front, one of the biggest areas of damage we had on Country Club was the front of 2T. It collapsed, so we have to go back in and reestablish that. Once we get a permit, we intend to do that in-house, working with the MAC division to make that happen, so we can minimize the dollars we spend to fix that. Also in Country Club, holes number 2, 3, and 8 had their bunkers completely washed out, so we're going to completely rebuild the inside of the bunkers. If you went out and played tomorrow, they won't be cleaned out. We have done nothing to them because the equipment we use to do that work is presently working on the other golf courses picking up debris. So within a couple of weeks, we'll be to those bunkers. They'll play as ground under repair in the meantime. Some of the damage that we've had were controllers, irrigation controllers. We're going to try to save money going forward. We've moved some to higher grounds where that was possible. And my staff in the service technician area, very skilled group of people, we prefab some pedestals, so there are going to be some high-rise controllers. And we feel this will, some of them might still get knocked down, but we feel we can save a lot. We had 18 controllers damaged during this storm on the 3 golf courses that were on the valley. We also have various areas that have been temporarily fixed for safety purposes. The bridges, some of the cart path ramps to and from bridges washed out or undermined, so we've temporarily fixed those, and we'll have to go back at a later date and repair those. Bridge railings is something I mentioned. We also have fabricated a process to put railings back out in sections that will be easy to remove. We kind of expect or can anticipate a flood, so we'll be able to get those railings and bring them in. Costs about $6,000 in metal to replace them every time we do that. So we feel that's a good way to save some money going forward as well. I think that probably gives you a rundown of where we are. Obviously, Burksdale had a bridge that is no longer usable. So as I think everybody's aware, we're going to reroute that golf course, which means there's going to be some signage. I have to get out there and get the signs that say 2 to 3 on the cart path, because that may no longer be 2 to 3. So we hope to have all of that completed before the golf course opens. So thanks for your patience. I want to thank all the volunteers that came out and helped us. The first day I chose for volunteers, it was pretty darn cold. We had a lot of people show up on Scottsdale, Country Club, Kingswood, and Burksdale did a great job, did a lot of the handwork while our guys did the big equipment. We had a couple more follow-up days after that. Had good response out of that. We have a great organization here with people that are willing to volunteer and help. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith. That is the last item under old business, and so while you're here, Keith, why don't you be the first item under new business and tell us about the cost changes on the repair at Scottsdale number 13?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. For that, we've discussed this for quite some time on number 13. It's the culvert that goes underneath in front of the green. The culvert has failed. Stream erosion to the left. Losing property, keeps getting further and further out in front of that green. Very steep, very dangerous. We had it in the system to be repaired. The flood probably took another the rains up there took another 3 to 4 feet off. So we were in the process of doing the bids. We opened bids yesterday. We had 3 out of the 7 people that came to the pre-bid. 3 bids were submitted. And the low bid was, let me see if it's written on here. Do you have that paper? Sorry. Low bid was $101,506. The high bid was $138,885. And our estimate from the engineer before we went into the bid process was $87,250. So that is why we are requesting a variance of about $14,000. We're going to go from $124,000 that was approved originally we're requesting to $138,256. And if we get approval of that tonight, we'll release the bids next week, and we'll get started that project hopefully by the 1st of February with a completion date around April 1st.
Damage from this recent flood has not extended that cost.
No, the increase in the cost, we believe, is based on the fact that this original estimates were done by the engineers 7-10 months ago. And since then, just this year, Cooper has raised concrete costs $10 a yard. So when we looked at the comparisons of all of them and the categories that were out, the majority of that increase was in the cost of the concrete.
Thank you, Keith. Do any of the board members have any other particular questions for Keith on this specific topic? Could I get a motion to approve the revised cost, or is there another motion? But that's the motion I'm requesting.
I'll move that we approve the revised costs.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, so the motion is to approve the repair cost, and I know there's engineering and project management cost above this, but what was the total number, Keith? 138? 138,256. Okay, so the motion is to spend a total of $138,256 to replace the culvert on Scottsdale number 13 and related groundwork, irrigation, sod, et cetera, et cetera. All in favor, please signify. All opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, if I can get my computer to boot back up here, there we go. We have 2 other items on the agenda this evening. 2 other items under new business that require a vote. I am going to provide the first reading tonight of a proposed change to bylaw Article 8, Section 1. And the board members all have a copy of this right now. But Article 8, Section 1 has to deal with committees. And the intention of this change to this bylaw is to provide a flexibility in the number of members of the election committee. Presently, the bylaws say that the election committee will consist of only 5 members, specifically 5, not 4, not 7, but only 5. Recent past experience by our election committee indicates that 5 is just not enough. There are literally tens of thousands of votes that must be manually tabulated by this election committee over a period of a few weeks, and it's simply too much work for 5 people to get done. And so, excuse me, the purpose of this change again is the revised wording says the number of members on the election committee shall be determined by the chairperson of the committee in consultation with the chairperson of the board of directors and with the simple majority approval of the board of directors. So instead of having a hard and fast number of 5 members, that committee membership will be determined annually by a discussion between the election committee chairperson and the chairman of the board with the approval of the majority of the board. That's the proposed change to Article 8, Section 1 of the bylaws. Do I have a motion under first reading for that change?
I move we make the change in the election committee numbers.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of this, please signify. Okay, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next proposed change to the bylaws is the same article, but this time Section 10, which continues to involve committees. Presently, Section 10 reads that the chairman of the board of directors and the general manager shall have the joint power to appoint joint advisory committee members. The proposal is to change that to say that the chairman of the board, in consultation with the committee chairperson and the board of directors, has the authority to appoint members to the JACs. Basically, the change is to remove the general manager or the chief operating officer from the process of appointing JAC members. Do I have a motion for this bylaw change?
I'd like to make a motion to change the bylaw to, as stated.
Thank you, John. Is there a second? Thank you, Joshua. Any further discussion on the proposed change? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I also want to remind the board and inform the members here that these 2 votes that we just took on changing the bylaws are really just the first step in what ultimately is intended. Once these bylaws are approved, presumably at the next board meeting, then the board can go on to modify POA policies that are really dependent on these bylaws. So this is really a 2-step process, and because it takes 2 months to change the bylaws, you'll hear this exact same activity going on at the February meeting, but assuming that that vote is successful in February, we will then begin to move forward with modifying a couple of POA policies as spelled out in your agenda as well. The last thing under new business is it's kind of old business really because you read it in the paper, but there has been an extension of time granted for the nomination by petition process for election of directors. I think it's understood and relatively well known that each year we elect 3 new directors, and normally we would identify the candidates at the January meeting, but as of last week we had 2 people who had expressed interest and had begun the petition process, but those petitions had not even been returned yet. So literally as of a week ago we didn't have any certified candidates for our director election, at which time the election committee was consulted and they agreed that it would be appropriate to extend the time for the nomination period until February 1, which is, I believe, 2 weeks or a week from this coming Monday, another 10 or 12 days. So that's really just a formal announcement of an election committee decision. The last item on the agenda is to remind the members and the board of upcoming meetings. The next general manager board monthly meeting will be held on Thursday, February 4th 2016 at 2:30 in the afternoon, right here. And this is a closed discussion meeting. The next Board of Directors work session will be held on Thursday, February 11th, 2016 at 8 a.m. in this room. That meeting is open to the membership and the public. And then the next regular Board of Directors meeting will be held on Thursday, February 18th, same time, 6:30, right here. And this meeting is hereby adjourned.